Hi, I'm James Schillinglaw, and I'm here with Michela Claudino, who is the director for Czech Tourism here in New York. And we're going to talk to Michela about what's going on in the Czech Republic in terms of this crisis and how the country is emerging from the coronavirus crisis. And we're going to talk about how travel might be emerging too. Maybe not quite yet for Americans, but maybe not too much farther in the future. We can only hope. You're going to find out about this and more on Insider Travel Report. Michela, well, first of all, how are you and where are you?
Hi, James. Very good to see you, at least via the Zoom link. I'm okay. I'm actually in Massachusetts, where we are staying with my in-laws because they have a little bit of a bigger backyard and a pool for the kids. So a little bit of a help for us working parents to, to be actually able to get some work done. So we're in Massachusetts. We were in New York for a good 2.5 months, and then we left.
And so you haven't been back, obviously, to the Czech Republic since all this started happening, right?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay.
But I have some of my friends are already traveling and, returning for the summer to the Czech Republic. And so I'm in touch with people who are there right now and who traveled from the U.S. there.
Now let's talk. Can you give us an update of how the Czech Republic was hit by the COVID-19 pandemic and how the country has dealt with the crisis?
Right. So Czech Republic, very similar to, for instance, Germany or Austria, has dealt with the COVID crisis fairly well. We had about 10,000 cases, 300 casualties. The country went into a lockdown very early on, very strict lockdown, and it helped. So there was not really a full-blown pandemic at all. The hospitals were never, super busy, and all the precautions were taken in a timely manner. So the country handled it really well, and it's now in a sort of final stages of opening up.
Well, let's talk about that. You are now starting to reopen in phased reopening. When do you expect to, I guess you may already be getting your first tourists from neighboring countries, right, and the rest of Europe. What's the timetable on that and of ultimately accepting tourists from North America?
So I think there have been a few key dates when it came to the reopening phase. And one of them was May 25th, when the hotels reopened, restaurants, pretty much, all the facilities, attractions, etc. Those open on May 25th. June 15th was the day when most of the European borders open with the Czech Republic. So Czech government color-coded Europe with different colors. The green countries, which is pretty much all the European countries except for Portugal and Sweden and Great Britain, are actually open, and people can travel back and forth between Czech Republic and the rest of Europe without having to present a COVID test or being quarantined on either side. So June 15 was the date when the borders open, and now July 1st is actually July 1st is actually the date when Czechs will have the opportunity to stop wearing masks even. So, I mean, inside the country, as I said, everything is open, and now they're really lifting up the last restrictions, which was like using a facial cover, etc. So that is supposed to be lifted up in July. Wow.
And what about, is there any date that you might start accepting North American travelers?
Yeah, I wish I knew. I wish I had the answer. I know that there are talks between, my head office, the government, the authorities who handle the epidemiological situation. As of now, we don't have any dates. I assume it's going to be coordinated on an EU level to a certain extent, because it would be very confusing to have some countries open, some other countries not really open. So I hope it will be soon, but as of now, it's only open for the European countries.
Okay, well, hopefully that will be soon, or at least by the fall. Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned that the tourism infrastructure, hotels are open, attractions, historical sites, transportation. Is that pretty much everything is now open for visitors, albeit to European countries and Czech citizens themselves?
Yes, so pretty much everything is open. There were some restrictions when being inside, so you would have to only limit a certain number of people allowed to be inside for a while, but now that's been also lifted up, so they're even allowing events up to 5,000 people happening in the Czech Republic. So they're talking about some trade fairs in the fall that can accommodate up to 5,000 people. So, all the tourism attractions, everything is open and, ready to welcome tourists when they come. And they're slowly coming from the neighboring countries. They really have a chance to experience Prague and the Czech Republic like never before, because they are not, overwhelmed with crowds and tourists, so to speak.
Yeah, I know we're getting
Unfortunately for some.
Unfortunately, yeah, right now is kind of is getting into the height of the season where you can go to Prague, and yes, the Charles Bridge and there is usually pretty packed when that happens. I know, I've been there. Now, what will change for travelers entering the Czech Republic in terms of testing, medical checks, health certifications, quarantines? How will the arrival process be any different, if it indeed will be?
Right. So as of now, it really depends what country you're traveling from. So if you're going to be traveling from the green coded countries, it's not any different from what it was when you're traveling from, as I mentioned, Portugal, Sweden now, and Great Britain. You will have to present a negative COVID test, or quarantine for 2 weeks. Other than that, of course, like the common precautions everywhere, hand sanitizers. The hotels have strict protocols in place in terms of cleaning the rooms. The Czech Hotel Association is starting to issue a certificate called Stay Safe. So all the hotels can apply for it, and they have to comply with certain regulations. So it's all, becoming part of the new normal, sort of. But, Czech Republic has dealt with it pretty well, and they want to preserve the good sort of outcome. So I mean, they're really implying a lot of regulations and sort of restrictions at the same time, not to spread the virus again.
No, that's good, and because obviously we don't want any kind of backtrack on this. It sounds like the Czech Republic did quite well during this whole crisis. Now, how is airline travel coming back to the Czech Republic? And I don't even know if there are flights from the U.S. now or not,
Right.
and certainly from other parts of Europe.
Yeah, so we had a couple of nonstop flights during the summer season to Prague. Those were on Delta, and we were about to introduce a new direct flight out of Chicago this year. Those are gone for this season. But KLM, Lufthansa, Swiss Air operate, and you can travel from the US to Prague at this time. You can do that, and it's fairly easy, one layover in either of the destinations. And Prague airport is slowly, receiving more and more airlines. I think they're aiming to have up to 55 destinations open by the end of this month. It's mostly European, obviously, but from the US, you can travel, but the airlift is limited to a certain degree because the direct flights were canceled for this summer.
Well, hopefully we can get those back reinstated next year.
Yes, I certainly hope so. It was really going well. It was really very.
Well, that was what my next question was going to be to you. What were your numbers looking like before this crisis? And obviously now it's a different story, right?
Yeah. Well, the U.S. market is really very important to the Czech Republic. It's the fifth, strongest market when it comes to incoming tourism. We had roughly 600,000 Americans traveling in 2019 or visiting the Czech Republic, which has been increasing every year. Very healthy increase, 5-6% every year. So no big jumps, no big drops. So very healthy increase, and for the past, I would say 10 years, the Americans have 1.5 million overnights in the Czech Republic. So really, really clients that the country misses right now. The numbers for this year, I really we only got the statistics for the first quarter, and it was already 30% down from the US, and
wow.
Overall, I think 40% down. And I'm sort of afraid to look now at the statistics that will come after summer and this whole year probably. But it's only to be expected with things that are going on now, and I hope that it will rebound, fast and better. So who knows?
Well, just don't look at the numbers until the first quarter of 2021. All right.
Right.
That's probably the way
I
you
don't
want to
know.
look at it. But
Yeah.
now, what kind of marketing have you been engaged in during this crisis, both to consumers and to travel advisors? And how much have you relied on more virtual and experiential marketing to keep your destination top of mind with U.S. travelers?
Right. Well, we never really stopped marketing. I mean, we paused some of the B2C campaigns, the larger campaigns, but on the B2B front, we really continue working with the travel advisors and with the tour operators. I think, like everybody, we have done webinars, we have done some virtual trainings, we have done like virtual trade shows, and the interest was quite big, was there, and the advisors had time, obviously, to do it. So we took advantage of it. On the B2C front, we worked with a few influencers that visited Czech Republic in the past, and we sort of created a new content, not so much around the destination and empty places, but about the connections between people, because I think that's really important, not to show only like, okay, Charles Bridge is empty and it needs people, but it's also the people who work there. How did they handle it? How the people in the tourism industry handle it? What do you miss more about traveling? I mean, is it really the people you're meeting? So we created the small social media campaigns around that. And that was pretty successful on the B2C front. And we actually hope to continue with the sort of people-to-people message in the next phase, when hopefully, the border will reopen, and actually feature some of the hospitality industry people who suffered through the pandemic and how they dealt with it and what did they do instead, and just really show the human beings behind this whole craziness. And because I think what we miss the most is like the human connections as well. I mean, you don't want to see any more empty plazas and restaurants, etc. You want to see people there, and you want to see what they did, how they handled it, how they feel now. So I feel that's the message we will rely, like, be ready whenever you are.
Well, certainly that's, and then the fact that you are opening up in Europe, and hopefully you'll see more tourists from other European countries, so that maybe we will see restaurants that are a little more crowded. Are there certain restrictions in place, like social distancing? And you said that there actually, which was surprising to me, that you are going to stop having mandatory face masks certain dates soon. But are there other precautions that the Czech Republic is taking to try to contain this now that it's essentially over in Czech Republic?
Right. So they're looking at the pandemic, or at the cases. I mean, there obviously still are some new cases, maybe 20 a day, but they're looking at it. They're looking at specific places where it happens. And at those specific places, they will impose all the restrictions they need to. So as of now, there's, for instance, a northern part of the Czech Republic, or in near the Polish border, that had there was an epicenter. So they still have to wear the face masks and everything. But in terms of common restrictions, those will be gone, like the face masks, etc. But there still might go back in place if a problem reoccurs. The social distancing, yes, it's encouraged in indoors, in places when you go to museums, when you go to visit castles, etc. In restaurants, I believe no longer. They're actually allowing people to sit really next to each other, and they're not really super strict about leaving a table in between two people having dinner, which was not the case about a month ago when I talked to my mom who went to Prague, and she said there was a table and there was another table that said reserved for COVID. It's just
right.
And but that's also gone. So pretty much, I would say, in most of the Czech Republic, life is completely back to normal.
That's great to hear, and hopefully we will be able to experience that later in the year or next year. Now, what are some of the sort of new products and attractions and events that travel advisors can start to get excited about selling for the Czech Republic, either obviously later this year and into next year? I mean, what are some of the things that you're really keying on for Prague and the rest of Czech Republic?
Right. So I think we all sort of hope that the new traveler or the new landscape will be a little bit more about, spending a little bit more time in the destination, learn more about the destination, more in-depth experience. To be honest with you, I sort of have this question in my head, will it really happen? When the borders open to the American travelers, will they try to do as much as possible in a shorter time because they want to fly only once across the ocean to Europe? Or will they really spend more time in the destination and take their time to discover? So I think it's yet to be seen. But definitely, in Prague, there are some experiences that will benefit from having, or being going through the COVID. So there will be a limited number of people who will be allowed to visit certain areas, Prague Castle, etc. So they will have to buy tickets in advance. So I think that will really sort of benefit the traveler. We as a tourism board, we have been focusing for a while on, places outside of Prague. So that's not going to change. We have a website dedicated only to biking, called Czech Trails, for instance. We will be promoting smaller boutique accommodation facilities outside of Prague as well, where you just go to experience, let's say, a small farm, etc. So we work with some of these associations. We will be promoting some of the spa towns. So I think, time will show what the travel will be interested in. But definitely, we want to encourage people to stay outside of the capitals and sort of visit other places as well.
Well, that's something I've always wanted to do. I mean, as we all do. I've been to Prague, and I think it's Český Krumlov, and
right.
That's about it, and really have not gotten down to. And we've talked about this to other great places within Czech Republic, and I was hopefully planning on doing that this year, but I guess we're going to have to make that for next year. So,
yeah, well, it will be there. So
okay. Now, where can travel advisors go to get more information on Czech Republic tourism?
So we have a great website, which is, it's going to be relaunched. I mean, it's working, but a new website will be launched pretty soon. It's called czechtourism.com or visitczechrepublic.com. Both are working at the same time. We also have a great destination specialist program together with Hungary, Poland, Slovakia. It's called centraleuropespecialist.com. So travel agents can go to that program and become certified in Central Europe. It's been doing pretty well for the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. And of course, if they need anything, they can always get in touch with us. We're based in New York. Our office is quite small, so emailing us or calling us is always an option. And we do work, on a personal level very, very well. So we're happy to advise and help anybody who has any questions.
That's great news, and it's great to hear that that Czech Republic is opening for Europe, and that you really didn't have the kind of pandemic that a lot of, certainly that the U.S. did, which was still I still can't quite believe that we got hit this hard. But I guess we just have to hope that next year will be a better year, and that whether they find a vaccine or not, that we can deal with this situation. Michaela, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us to talk about Czech Republic tourism. I, for one, can't wait to get back there. It's a marvelous country. Prague is a beautiful city, and to explore outside of it will be one of my goals in the future. And I know for all of our travel advisor subscribers out there, if they haven't sent their clients to Czech Republic before, this may be an opportunity to learn, as you said, to all the great places that they can book, and really their clients will thank them for it, because it is a marvelous country. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, James. Thank you for keeping Europe, in the front, and thank you for bringing out all the information that's valuable for everybody and connecting the industry. It's great. Thank you.
I'm James Schillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.